We've been told success means more. More money, more work, more achievement. But what if success was something different? This is What If, where we imagine a world as it could be and meet the people building it now. I'm Daydriane, and I'm glad you're here. Today we're asking, what if we redefine success? What if wealth was about giving instead of taking? About sharing abundance rather than holding the weight of scarcity alone? Before we dive in, a few terms that'll come up in today's conversation. Reparative economy. An economy that heals, one that moves resources toward communities historically excluded from wealth. Relational wealth. Value built through trust, community, and shared well-being. Abundance. The belief that there's enough for everyone, and that success expands when we share it. So what does it take to make this what if real? Today, we are joined by Jessica Norwood, author, investor, and the founder of Runway, an organization creating funding pipelines for BIPOC entrepreneurs in cities like Oakland, Chicago, Boston, and all across the South. Jessica's work centers on moving resources toward Black joy, creativity, and brilliance while helping entrepreneurs access the capital and support they need to grow and to thrive. Jessica, I could say a lot more, but I'd love to hear it in your words. How do you describe the work that you're doing these days?
Oh my goodness. How do I describe the work I'm doing these days? I would say that I am maybe a doula in a lot of ways, birthing a new way.
Love that.
I am I'm a shaman, so I also really am weaving in a lot of spiritual work inside of this. I think as we talk more about what it means and the kind of finance that I think really resonates with so many of the people that we work with, it is finance that captures a much richer imagination of abundance and wealth. And so those concepts of things um, and how it links to our soul's purpose in our work's life
Mhm.
and our life's work, excuse me. Those are the things that I probably talk a lot about. I talk about the relationships that we have to the people and planet around us and how the way that we invest in one another really upholds those kinds of ideals and values.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love those metaphors you used.
Thank you.
Um, in your book, you ask, what would it look like if the economy loved Black people? And
Yeah.
how can this framing shift how we think about success and who deserves resources, especially for entrepreneurs and creators?
You know, when we hold the question, what would it look like if the economy loved Black people? We're doing something really radical in that moment where we're centering those who have been marginalized and exploited in the economy. And that's a radical position, I think, to take for a finance conversation that typically centers the return to the capital holder above all things, above the worker, you know, above the community, above, what have you. So there is a deservedness and a success, I would say, in just centering oneself. And for anybody who has ever been a caregiver, parented, has done anything, has been an educator, has done anything that's required them to pour themselves out to others, you might struggle with the concept of centering yourself. And in a lot of ways, we have been conditioned, those of us who've been in those spaces, to believe that everybody else deserves centering, that we don't need it. I've got it. I'm strong. I can handle it. Maybe I'm the eldest in my family, and that's just my
Mhm.
role. Whatever way it happens, there is a radical reframing of your mind and of your experience of the world when you are centered. And I think that part drives a lot of what we are talking about around success and deservedness. Starts with identifying and centering oneself, and particularly centering those who have been excluded and marginalized.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it challenges the stories or the narratives we've been told
Mhm.
about who earns success and who doesn't. I'm kind of interested to hear like what physical shift, what mental shift, what spiritual shift do you see for people when they really start sitting with that question? Because it is radical and it shouldn't be. But yeah, what shift do you see in people when they start thinking about that?
Yeah. I I I I think that there is a space in that to learn new things.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want, right? Like there are a lot of ways where we have shame and blame and fear that come into play. And the moment that you start realizing that you deserve to be centered, that
Yeah.
you can do it, then all of a sudden those spaces you're now able to stretch. You're now able to leave that fear and that panic zone and stretch into and learn and stretch into learning a new thing. And those learning a new things could be learning those new financial habits. Those new things could be learning, other alternatives of investment. Those things could be all these other things, but your resistance and hesitancy
Mm,
starts to really fall away. And that resistance and hesitancy isn't actually something you've earned that resistance and hesitancy. You've earned it because you've been in a system that has not loved you. So we understand why it's there. The counterweight to it is centering oneself, is loving oneself enough to believe. And then when that opens up, then you're able to learn the new things and do the new things. Because I don't actually think that when people talk about an alternative economy or a next economy or a solidarity economy, I talk about it as the reparative economy.
mm,
I don't think that this is a thing that we are far away from. I think we're in it. I think the deciding factors in this is to be able to really believe you deserve it, to believe that you are that there is a success and an abundance and a wellness
mm.
for you in this world, in this lifetime. And it's a very radical idea for a lot of folks to take. And I understand why. When you have been so violently excluded and pushed to the margins and then yeah, you see yourself in a particular way. And I think that is why it's so significant to talk about the money in this way and to talk about investing in communities and people who have been so largely unseen and unsupported.
Yeah, you highlighted that. It starts in the mind. Like if you can't see it or if you can't imagine it, then it won't
Yeah,
happen.
it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
So you've built models that reimagine capital as something relational, something that's rooted in trust. When in your life did you start to realize that the usual story of success, the hustle, the constant accumulation, doing it all alone, productivity to no end, was leaving people out or was causing harm?
I wish I could take a lot of credit for this. I think I've always known this. I grew up um, in Alabama, the daughter of civil rights leaders and entrepreneurs. And I knew that the next wave of work was an economic conversation with America and
Yeah.
an economic conversation around the globe as many Black communities, African communities, descent were coming out of colonization and striking their own independence. I knew we were at a time in the world in the 60s, 70s where that was the question. And so I was really raised up as a daughter of that scholarship and that work. And so I have always thought that this conventional story of who deserves, who's worthy, what's worthwhile, what is really valuable, and what makes you wealthy and abundant
Yeah.
wasn't actually the story that I was experiencing as a Black American in the South. I knew. because this is what I was taught and what I experienced, that community was actually the way that we had success in our community, in our areas, that people coming together was how we were able to organize and achieve and survive a thing, by pooling resources, by creating schools and towns and this story and narrative, particularly when it comes to um, Black Americans or immigrants in this community, in this country, and so forth, is that they aren't pooling their resources together. They aren't solving problems in their community. This could not be further from the truth. And
Yeah.
this is the resiliency. This is the resistance is
Yeah.
in community. And so, I always knew that it wasn't a story for us. I always questioned whether or not, in particular, descendants of enslaved in America, people who sort of trace their history in that way, could even have fundamentally the same relationship to capital, to wealth. Like, can I even fundamentally think about it when I grew up in the shadows of the plantations that owned your families? Like, do we see it the same way? And my argument is no, we don't see it the same way. But again, it goes back to this earlier question of centering yourself, or your earlier point of centering yourself. We don't see it the same way. And therefore, centering yourself gives you permission to acknowledge that and then design from a different place. And so when we say, well, what does it mean to design these kinds of funds, or what does it mean to do this kind of work in that way? You start from knowing that you are valuable and worthy enough. You start from claiming your own story and your own narrative and own experience of things. And so my experience has been rooted in the South. It's been rooted in community. It's been rooted in deep relationship to the people and places and land around us. And so my belief in what wealth is and my belief in what abundance really is driven from that space. Yeah.
And I think a lot of things, especially as a Black woman, are just intrinsic.
It's a vibe. I think
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I'm trying to invite people really into, is that there is an Afro indigenous way of knowing things. And
Mm.
um I had a really dear friend who has since passed away, and we were a part of, before this was Common Future, in its first names and first iterations, when you had these big fellowship programs. There was a person, um Jay Badhart Bull, who was a really dear friend of mine. And um I remember when we first came together in our cohort, and we were talking about, we are this first class of people who were moving and shaping the new next local economies and all kind of different economy ways and things like that. And one of the things that he said that just has always stuck with me was that he in his culture, it was meant that the wealthiest person was the person who had the least, because they poured it all out. They gave everything away. And he really lived his life in that way of pouring out cultural knowledge and pouring out, if you needed a coat, if you needed a food, everything you give away. And that was what wealth was about, that you poured it all out for the people and the generations of folks around you. And he would introduce himself, and it wasn't just, "Hi, my name is such and such, and I am the executive director or the president of whatever company." No, he made sure that you understood the people and the lineage and the land where he came from, and he talked about it in such poetry. And I remember thinking, this is where his real wealth is. And
Yeah.
he's demonstrating for each of us every time he opens his mouth and introduces himself what wealth means to him. And so, my invitation to people, and to your point about there are just some things, yeah, we just know. And then there are things that are around us that if you tap into that frequency, if you tap into that vibration about what really matters, what it is that you could never live without. Like, I can never imagine living without the people and friends and classmates and, neighborhood haunts that I used to go to. I don't want to do without those things. Then that becomes the things that are important to fight for and the importance to invest.
Yeah.
And so there is this real through line between what we instinctively and intuitively know, and how that is connected to the planet around us and the relations around us, and how that really is an Afro-Indigenous knowing and way that we have been that's been tried to be extracted from us, that's tried to be wiped out, that's been discredited in a way as like, that's just a passing thought. But real business looks like this, and real business and moving money really looks like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
No, no, no.
That.
Yeah.
That kind of ties to something else I wanted to ask you. You don't see wealth as like just money. Like that doesn't even matter really. It's a tool for something bigger, something more free and sustainable. So what does that look like to you? What does liberation or freedom beyond wealth look like to you? What does it feel like with the entrepreneurs and the communities that you're building with?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. Right now, and I think the pendulum swings on,
Mm,
there is no end to wealth. So
yes.
you can ask me tomorrow and I'll tell you a new thing, and then the
Right.
next day and the next day. So I just want to just say that there's no end to these thoughts. Everything is possible, everything is abundant, but in this most immediate time, what I imagine I think it was the Langston Hughes poem about a dream deferred. Think about those lines of what happens when a dream deferred, does it dry up in the sun like a raisin? And I think about how many people in our communities are so talented, um, who are ripe with idea and ambition. And really, if we looked at this in the most vibrant, holistic way, every person who is born in this moment, in this time, is a part of, even in this most simplest way, the solution to what happens tomorrow and in the world that we create. They are part of the fabric that's necessary. Maybe it is that they're a good nurturer and they took care of somebody over here. Maybe they said some powerful words to somebody that filled their spirit up, and who knows what the thing is, but I think that there has to be a really divine and cosmic reason that we are all happening in the planet at the same time. And so I think about wealth as those people whose great ideas are simmering in their hearts, and that they have an opportunity to see for once in their lives where hard work and preparation and the moment meet up, and they catch that spark and they get it, and that's available to them, not just because of the color of their skin, or not just because they were born into the right families or anything,
Mhm.
but because they genuinely, truly have something that all of us need in the world, and we want to invest in it and we want to see it possible. What does that do to change a family? What does that do to change a neighborhood? What does that do to just put the confidence inside of a human being that you're worthy, that you're valuable, and that you're needed? That's really the wealth that I'm looking for. And I think that's the promise of Runway and our work around reparative capital.
That's so beautiful. And I can tell that it really truly comes from your heart. And of course we're wanting to build things that don't exist for everyone. They may exist for us, but they don't exist for everyone. So how do you personally um foster or practice that kind of imagination to see beyond like what's physically in front of you?
I have already decided, and maybe my spirit soul decided these things long ago, but my expression and understanding of money is energy. And I am willing to work with it in its formal way, like a fiat paper currency, a digital currency, a an imagination and emotive currency, the energy where you're putting your life's prayers and work and ideas into it is theoretically what we call money all around the world. It is a totem. In my shamanic way, it is a totem. It is a tool that is holding so much energy. Um, and I I work with that. I work with that inside of myself. I work with it um with other people. I'm working with that. And so I don't separate the concept of this is what I'm doing in the investment fund and this is how large the fund is, this is how successful the fund is. I don't separate it from my spiritual life. And so I am in constant conversation with myself. And as I am leaning into and my prayer, my meditation, my spiritual life, I'm able to also tap into the future, if you will, the future me, because that's what it is. When you're working, you're essentially casting a future. Like I'm doing my projections on my business. I'm future gazing about what could happen in the world. When I'm speaking right now, I'm actually prophetically saying what I want to be true in the world. And then I walk into those things. So I am constantly in relationship to that idea. And that is how I restore myself, but that's how I chart that course. And then I tap in with others and I say, do you see it this way? Because we're all divining. We're all getting gifts and downloads and relationship to the plan. How do you see it? And then we come together on that. And then we come together. And the more of us that continue to come together, then we make it real in the world. Then we put it into action. So I am I don't see, as I said earlier, I don't see what I'm doing as so much the future as it is. This is the present. This is what I'm living into today, exactly in this moment.
Yes.
And the invitation is to join. But this isn't a future ambition. It progresses and the ideas progress, but we're in it now. We're doing it
Mhm.
now. We're living into this future now.
That's a very energizing idea that it's not like some far off thing or even something that we have to think about building. It's just something that's happening now. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It really is. I think to your point, like that intuitive part of you, it's already happening in you. It's already manifesting. And so then we learn the practices of how to sit with that and how to be confident in that. And then the instructions really are if you center yourself, if you understand how deserving you are and that the reasons you don't feel that way are systemic, if you can and if we can reinforce those things by giving you the gift of technology supports, business supports, resources to lift those ideas, I believe this is that theory of change. I believe that you will walk into the new next thing, that you believe it just the way that I believe it. And I believe it because people pour into me, people give to me, people love on me. And so I believe because I'm living it.
So, in the spirit of living in it, Jessica, when you think about today's question, what if we redefined success? What is your answer?
If we redefine success, um, I think we would all be included in the outcome. If we redefine success, there wouldn't be an option that here you are toiling away, but in the end, you're not included in that success. That would be success. That if that your survival did not depend on somebody else's demise or the planet's demise. That we don't have to make those kinds of decisions between us, that there's an agreement that there is enough and that we can enjoy the enoughness together. That would be success.
beautiful. There is an agreement that there is enough.
Yes.
And that's Jessica's answer, but there's isn't one single answer. We all build these answers together. And each of us can take a step toward the future we're imagining together. We'll meet back here with a new question and new answers next week. Thanks for being here with us. This is What If, a podcast by Common Futurists. What If is hosted and produced by me, Daydriane Chapman. Cover art is by Kat Janes. Music is by Sam Barsh and Luna Ray. For more What If content, follow us on Instagram at Common Futurists. The future starts in our imagination and in our inbox. Send your thoughts and dreams to whatif@commonfuture.co.